Spent a little time with Brian Grazer, Academy Award-winning producer of A Beautiful Mind, Apollo 13, Splash, Arrested Development, 24/8. You know, if we ran through the litany of everything he's been attached to, we wouldn't have any time to talk to him. Named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. Brian, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. A Curious Mind, the secret to a bigger life. You, along with Charles Fishman, and, looking through this and getting some background on this, I would love to be in the position that you're in to do what you have done and have these curiosity conversations.
Well, thank you. I mean, I started this clearly when I hadn't produced anything, actually. So I just created my own access. Anyone, honestly, can do this. A housewife, kids out of college, that's when I sort of started. Anyone can actually reach out and meet somebody that can enlarge in their life just through the power of curiosity, or the superpower of curiosity.
And I bet you have found that you never quite know the kind of information you'll glean from these people who have been successful in their life. Perhaps you would never think you'd find a little nugget from someone that's not even in their field of expertise, so to speak.
That's exactly true. I mean, first of all, we don't know what we don't know. So, I mean, I thought I didn't want to learn anything about architecture. So, I didn't want to meet an architect. And then all of a sudden, I decided I'd meet Rem Koolhaas, this famous architect. And he immediately said architecture is like a living organism. And all of a sudden, then I was interested. I mean, just literally within 30 seconds, my whole point of view, my entire prejudice about why I didn't want to meet an architect changed. And, or you meet different people. I met a taxi cab driver in Greece that became the most interesting and the kindest human being I'd ever met. It was in Rhodos. His name was Manolis. And then I reached out, took 2 years, but I met Princess Di, and she's probably one of the most famous people in the world. So it's a full range of these possibilities, but anyone can reach out, even if it's just right in your neighborhood. There's someone in your neighborhood that knows something or has an obsession or commitment to a subject that you don't know anything about, and you don't know how the dots will connect in life. That could be something that just changes your life professionally or personally.
And being in your position, you're no stranger to being around the most famous and well-known people in the world, where a lot of us might be taken aback by some of these. I mean, that's, part of the everyday experience for you. But who did you sit down with that I guess, sucked all the air out of the room? I mean, somebody who it was almost intimidating to be with.
Intimidating. You know who's kind of intimidating? And it doesn't mean that... And I respect him and think he's a really good guy. Elon Musk intimidates me a little bit. But I've met presidents. I've met George W. Bush. I met George Bush. I met Senior, rather, and I've met, I know President Clinton quite well. I know Hillary Clinton. I know Condi. But Elon Musk because he is a master he's just a genius, and he's mastered like 3 different things at such a young age. And he's also kind of cool. And by the way, my meeting Elon Musk several years ago has now turned into what's going to be an 8-hour Mars project we're doing together. And I never would have thought I'd be doing that. I just don't know how things are going to turn out. And I think the book, A Curious Mind, it's about people from Elon Musk to a president to Princess Di to Michael Jackson, but also so many people that you wouldn't even know their names, but I've learned so much about life, and it's just expanded my life, and it's a power that everybody can employ.
Brian Grazer is with us. His book, A Curious Mind, The Secret to a Bigger Life. It's Riley and Scott on WROK. The book available now. There's a list in the book of all the people that you have compiled that you've talked to, and it literally spans everything. When you look at the, whether it be politics, technology, sports, finance, music, is there a certain sector that you found by doing these dozens and dozens and dozens of interviews and conversations that has, that sector that has a specific insight that generally is not what you expect?
Well, a lot of the Nobel laureates, the hundreds of Nobel laureates in science and medicine, They're really fun to talk to because they're nerds. They're from Carl Sagan to Jonas Salk to Edward Teller to Craig Ventnor on the genome, Kary Mullis, who also in the world won a Nobel Prize, also in the genome. They're easier to enter into their psyche. It's a little because they are, oddly enough, very less intimidating, even though the language of their expertise is disruptive to you. Athletes are really exciting. LeBron James, really exciting. Muhammad Ali, really exciting. Sugar Ray Leonard, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. I don't know a lot about boxing, but I met all those guys, and they're very exciting. The worlds that they create, or the constellation of people around boxers, it's kind of mind-blowing. So there's so many different categories, but Nobel laureates also, these geniuses, they usually have a chorus of people around them, usually young MacArthur Grant students, because for them to think and create, they like to have an audience around them. That's when they rise to a higher level. So you do learn things. I mean, I sometimes don't think unless I'm speaking. So some people can't. It's just the opposite. They can't think unless they're in silence. So you learn about people's thought process and how they create and how they create breakthroughs or how they where inspiration comes from. I mean, I don't think you can have inspiration or intimacy without curiosity.
It's a great way of looking at it. We're spending some time with Brian Grazer. The book is A Curious Mind, The Secret to a Bigger Life. And you're going to want to grab yourself a copy of that and learn some things yourself. Anybody you sit down with that, well, it just didn't really go anywhere?
Well, Isaac Asimov, the most prolific writer of science fiction. I flew across the country in my little coach seat from Los Angeles to New York, and the minute I sat with him, he and his wife decided I wasn't quite worthy of sitting with, so they got up and left after about a minute.
Wow!
Yeah, I spent almost a year trying. But they weren't really wrong. I didn't know enough about science fiction. They were kind of right, and I didn't know what he was really writing about at the time was robotics, and my learning curve just wasn't high enough. So I don't really fault them. I don't think I knew enough, and I learned something from that.
When you sit down with these people who perhaps you have virtually nothing in common with, and you know it's going to be, and they know it's going to be a conversation, what do you do to make them comfortable? What do you do to allow that conversation to flow with someone that you've never met before?
Well, usually what you try to do is you do enough research that you get a sense of what they would like to learn themselves, and you give it to them. So if I'm meeting a fashion designer, I might come with a piece of music, like from Tupac, or it might be from Hoosier, or it might be, and I just go, hey, did you hear this piece of music? And then it makes them, you're giving them a gift of something first. You're saying, hey, did you hear this song? And if they're interested in music, because, fashion certainly accesses on music, that starts it off. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is get into their psyche, what's going on in their life. I mean, look, you do this with kids. I have a 15-year-old boy that if I say, hey, what's going on, or how was your day, he doesn't even answer. But if I say, hey, I heard he's a catcher in baseball. If I said, I heard you played all 9 innings. How'd that go? Or what are you best at? Then all of a sudden he starts talking. And that's what you have to do with people. I mean, literally, what's your best date in your life was when you were really engaged with that girl. I mean, you are asking her real questions, and it's just coming out, and that's what you call chemistry, and that's what you're trying to do, create chemistry with all these interesting people that you get a chance to meet.
Brian, who haven't you sat down with that you'd like to?
I'd like to sit with Tom Brady. I've never really sat with a NFL quarterback, and I did a speech with Tom Brady, but I never really got to talk to him. But he did say we were both giving a speech at the same time to Activision. My friend Bobby Kotick is chairman of Activision, the biggest gaming company in the world, and he talked about having 150 plays in his head, and I thought, it was unimaginable.
You're going to want to grab this book, A Curious Mind, The Secret to a Bigger Life. Brian Grazer along with Charles Fishman. Brian, we're big fans, your entire body of work, and you've made us big fans of this book as well. Thanks a lot for taking time for us.
For sure. Thanks so much for being so generous with me today.